It begins with the people of Isgard cheering for their hero. A boy and his little sister were rushing to witness the parade. The boy told her to hurry as the parade almost ended. The boy suddenly stops, and his sister asks him why as he was in a hurry. As the man dressed in a black robe walked past them, she told him the parade was over there. His brother told her not to stare at him as the man is a dark mage, and he was cursed. This is our protagonist Minjun Kim, an ordinary high school senior in Korea, who was suddenly summoned to another world, where he became a dark mage. Minjun met the saint. She addressed him as Minold as it's his name in this world. He showed her a demonic hat, then told her the last threat to Isgard had been eliminated, and asked her to fulfill her end of the promise, which was to send him back to his original world. The saint tried to convince him to stay for the sake of the empire, and promised to reward him for all of the ill treatment he had received thus far and more. Minjun told her to stop the act, asking her what could she possibly give him in return. He asked her to bring him Korean fried chicken and jokbal, as he's disgusted by the food in this world, and demand a monstrous PC with incredible specs and the fastest internet connection. As he is dying to play the Dungeon Power Fighter game again, the saint could not fulfill his demands, so she agrees to start the return ceremony. She told him to stand in the middle of the summoning seal, the exact place where he was originally summoned. Firstly, she starts by releasing the protection of the saint. Though it is called protection, it is just a leash that restricts him from fighting the saint. The saint asks one more time that is he willing to give up everything, the incredible powers, riches, and glory. But Minjun told her to mind her own business, and threatened her that, once the protection is gone, isn't she concerned that she could die by his hand. She accepts, saying that she started it all. For the next stage, she will remove the powers he has obtained in Isgard, saying it will be dangerous for him to travel through the dimensional portal with the power from here. But Minjun hold her with his power. He is not willing to give up the powers he worked so much to obtain and open a dimensional portal by himself. The woman was shocked and asked him how did he manage to do it. Minjun replied he practiced it over 1,000 times. After all, he has reached the peak of his dark magic powers, leaving her and said to never see each other again. The saint was furious, claiming she does not do this because they enjoyed it. A purple light glows from a window, and Minjun finally arrived at his apartment. He sees his phone, eager to play, and immediately launches the Dungeon Power Fighters game. A notification pops up, saying no network connection. Outside, a squad of soldiers standing in formation following orders. The squad leader signals them to go. Upon seeing it, they find Minjun walking outside and talking to himself, saying it's been 2 years since he was summoned. He was pissed off just thinking about it again. He questions why isn't a single store open, and there is no Wi-Fi anywhere. The soldier thought civilians in this area were restricted, so how come he found a person in this area? The soldier asked Minjun to come this way. Minjun was surprised to see soldiers in a civilian area, and guessed they were just training. He apologizes and says he is just passing through. But then the soldiers shout, telling him to run. Minjun was shocked, and when he turned around he sees a large dog jumping towards him. The soldier shouted to dodge. Minjun, disappointed, saying this mud is not even worth a punch, tried to summon his demonic energy, but to his surprise, it is completely gone. He killed the dog with his bare hand, slamming its head to the ground. This reminded him of the strength training he had from Isgard. Minjun wonders why this monster appeared in this world. He called the soldier. The soldiers were shocked and afraid. He had so many questions, he let the soldier take him to the evacuation center. This isn't the Korea he used to know. The phenomenon of dungeons appeared when he was around 7 years old. Monsters started appearing in real life. With the appearance of dungeons, superhumans called the Awakened start to rise. The Hunter Corps was established with members whose abilities surpassed that of average humans. They're the ones who handled the monster as soon as it appeared. So before being summoned by the Saint, Korea had no danger of being harmed in civilian areas. The soldier asks if he doesn't know anything. Minjun excuses his lack of information by saying he was living abroad. The soldier finds it suspicious, but not that he can do much about it. Minjun is only worried about the game. He asks if the game developers were safe, and whether the server storage system is still up. The soldier began to tell him everything. It started 2 years ago when the dungeons behave weirdly. It's getting larger and more frequent. The increasing number of giant monsters was the main problem. Since the military lacked in numbers, they couldn't control it anymore. So the military started recruiting normal citizens above 20 and serves for 5 years. Since Minjun is 21, he asks if he had already received an enlistment letter. Minjun was furious after spending 2 years in another world. He just wants to play the game and relax, but has to enlist for 5 years. He received a mail with a strange sound effect, the call of the nation. He looked at it and was shocked. The enlistment date is tomorrow. He asks if this is real. The soldier told him to just double check it by himself in the PC room close to the evacuation center. Minjun was elated upon hearing a PC room. After his parents went missing, playing games was his only entertainment. After depleting his need to play games, he checked for internet news articles. He found that everything the soldier guy said was true. Minjun is sure that if he could use his power from Isgard, he would have been able to clear all of the dungeons by himself. but he is still confident that he could solve all of this by himself, so he decided to enlist in the military. The next day, there were many people all depressed. Minjun, on the other hand, wondered whether it would be as tough as Isgard. The instructors were shouting, giving them the word of command to form in a proper formation. Minjun thought the instructors here were nice and excited about it. The battalion commander was giving a speech, starting with an invitation to join the Hunter Corps, stating the treatment of the hunters is exceptionally different compared to regular troops, and the base pay starts at 1,000,001. The hall is quiet, no one dares to raise their hands except our protagonist. He was ordered to come forward immediately. Minjun replied yes and jumped toward the commander, breaking the floor in the process. He landed and introduced himself, and state that he want to apply to the Hunter Corps. The scene then switches to the past in Isgard 645 days before returning to Earth. Inside a cave in the Forgotten Canyon, in the northern region, Minjun was sitting on top of a spider monster, explaining how dark mages are different from regular mages. He states that while regular mages use mana which can restore itself naturally, he had to regularly collect it by defeating monsters with demonic energy, which is not very efficient since dark mages are despised and can't find a party member. He would be dead if he used up all his demonic energy while he is in a dungeon. He made a question: what is the best method for a dark mage to replenish their demonic energy and retain it? But no one answered, since the monsters are all dead. Then a dungeon boss, a Ratchlist, appeared. It screamed at him. Minjun said its answer was wrong, and with one punch killed the dungeon boss, and say, the correct answer to his question is, to defeat the monster with maxed out strength. Now we're back in the present time. The commander was asking him if he had any special reason for applying to the Hunter Corps, saying that things are pretty bad, and a lot of members return to the regular army despite having special abilities. Minjun replied saying he had some business in the dungeons, making the commander laugh, thinking he is just joking, and said he is a funny guy. Dungeons in Korea are managed by the army, and the subjugation of monsters belongs to the Hunter Corps. They can advance in ranks regardless of their service period, as long as they prove their abilities, without any limits. Minjun imagined if he joined the Hunter Corps, he would be able to encounter monsters with demonic energy, and sure that he could clear the majority of them by himself. He will be able to advance quickly at the same time, get the ability to recover his lost power. Claiming he can get 10 stars in 5 years and will become a high-salary public hero, then the dungeon power fighter can relax and develop the Fourth Awakenings. While he was imagining his perfect plan, the Hunter Corps Sergeant, Lee Singo, arrived. The commander introduces Minjun to the sergeant. The sergeant then asks Minjun if he had the ability to be a hunter, saying that if he's awakened as a hunter, he should be able to open a status window and command him to state all of his stats. Minjun remembered they had similar status windows which he barely used, as it just provided him with the number of values of his stats and abilities in Isgard 2. He wonders how it is here and opens his status window, which to all their surprise it says there's an error. The sergeant can't believe it. The scene then switches to somewhere in Gyeonggi-do, Hunter Corps Training Center. Inside an office, the training commander and Sun Yun-seo, the daughter of General Sun, were having a conversation. She was also a recruit. He praised her for her courage, and for choosing an ordinary soldier instead of an executive. The training commander told her about an interesting comrade she might get. The commander invited her to go pay a visit together. Minjun arrived and marveled at the military training facility. The sergeant was very stingy toward him, telling him to not get excited as his enlistment to the Hunter Corps has not been decided yet. He will personally test him as Minjun is a special case, and if he is found out to be lying, he would be immediately enlisted back to the military police, rather than Hunter Corps. Minjun asked what's the test, and the sergeant showed him a huge red stone. Red stone is a byproduct that was created from the dungeons. It is incredibly dense and heavy for its size, and it is also exceptionally hard. The sergeant told him he will give him 10 minutes to move even an inch, confident that Minjun would fail. On the other hand, Minjun was glad the test was simple. The sergeant was very irritated. He does not believe anything about him, thinking he is just trying to take advantage of the Hunter Corps with mediocre abilities, and status window error is just bullshit. The training commander and Sun Yun-seo were spectating him from a distance. The training commander said he had high hopes and was very interested. Minjun inspects the red stone. He said to himself he can easily push away this size, but goes for a blow, thinking there might be some demonic energy in it that he could absorb. With one blow, Minjun completely crushed the stone with his bare hand, which led everyone shocked. The soldiers were breathing heavily, climbing the infamous 6,000 steps with the weight on their ankles, since they'll participate in an actual battle immediately after the training period ends. The drills were very harsh, with a strict instructor, Sergeant Lee Singo. They expect all this hard work even before enlisting, but can't believe a guy doing so easily with great pleasure. At the same time, Minjun says his body feels so light that if he had all his demonic energy, he'd be flying. Minjun thinks the training seems so sweet, and the military uniform perfectly fits his style. He enjoyed the hunter course so much as they let their exercise, give them delicious meals, pay them handsomely, and give them time to play games. The sergeant was surprised to see Minjun finishing it so early, as it normally takes 1 hour for an average recruit. Minjun, upon seeing the instructor standing, teases him, asking him if he's really going to grant an outing pass if they finish in less than 30 minutes, and ask him how long he took, the sergeant not saying a word, just handing him a pass. Looking at the stopwatch, Minjun finishes it in a record time of 21 minutes 1.43 seconds. The instructor thinks to himself, was there ever a recruit that received an outing pass before? But it's not everything to have high stats and good strength. The most important thing is the ability to react to the monster for the hunter core. And said he will be watching him. Back at the camp, the soldiers were exhausted. One of them said his stats went up by 1, and the others congratulate him, while Minjun was surprised that they get excited over one stat. This reminded him of his training in Isgard. He was trained to raise his stats by 10 points daily. The soldiers were praising Minjun as he managed to earn an outing pass from Sergeant Lee, which they heard nobody has managed to obtain it. They ask him if he regularly works out a ton. Minjun was startled that they were laughing and talking with him, since when he was a dark mage, the people of Isgard were afraid of him as they thought he was bad luck, and refused to even make eye contact. He started to think communication is not as bad as he thought. While he was thinking, one of them said that the PC room is open. Minjun jumped up from his bed, shouting why they just barely telling him, and rushed toward the room. Minjun scheduling to get at least 2 hours of sleep, considering even 1 hour of sleep, is a luxury in Isgard, and will deplete his game fatigue on a daily basis. After an extremely long walk, Minjun said he had 10 max levels the previous day. His mate seeing him, surprised he does not even drop a sweat, Minjun replied, saying it was just a stroll. His mate disbelievingly asked if he really played games all night, except for 2 hours for all 4 weeks, saying he's a monster or something, which Minjun replied. He even brought water to share and jokingly said that he doesn't want the water for calling him a monster. He immediately took his word back, saying that Minjun has such monster stamina is what he meant. The others were also pleading with him to share his water, which Minjun feed them like baby chicks. The lieutenant suddenly arrived. He declared to everyone that he is extremely disappointed. Even though they were in the last week of training, only half of them passed the standard, saying they're the most lacking squadron to date. If they are deployed after the training ends, half of them will die in a month and a half as they are now, to stir up their mind and raise the tension. The last stage of the training will be the notorious dungeon adjustment training. Occasionally, some dungeons will still remain after defeating all the monsters within the dungeon. It transformed into a transforming dungeon that will change its internal structure regularly, which became a great training facility to experience all sorts of the environment within the dungeons. So, the dungeon adjustment training is the real-life training that is facilitated within this transforming dungeon. The recruits were all stressed out. The lieutenant told them to not be discouraged, as there would be a great reward for the highest score from this training. Whoever scored the highest will receive a 2-night and 3 days vacation pass. He expects they will all become overjoyed when he announced the reward, but disappointed that nobody except Minjun looks overjoyed. It's the dungeon adjustment training day. Everyone tense upon seeing a huge dungeon entrance, except for Minjun, who looked unsurprised. A 2.5 military truck was rushing to the place. The recruits were surprised to see the 2.5 military truck there. Their surprise immediately turned into fear when they heard a growling noise from the back of the truck.